Okay, thank you, Damian, for inviting me to this presentation. And the topic here maybe it's not very familiar with you, so I'll try to explain everything if I can. And basically, I try to explore similarities between Buddhist logic, or we say Eastern logic, and Western logic. I think there are many things in common, but we need to explore it more. So today I want to talk about that the Buddhist logic is kind of have in some sense has the same spirit as Stalnaker's assertion theory, and some ideas are similar to Stalnaker. So I try to connect them and try to explain some problems in Buddhist logic. Okay, let me start. So I will talk about what Dignāga's Buddhist logic and some important concepts. You can understand it as a kind of three characteristics of reason, and why does Exclude Pakṣa matter, and the relation with context, and I will give my conclusion. Okay, Dignāga's argument is called a three-membered argument. When Buddhists take the Indian logic, they try to improve it, and Dignāga is considered as a very important person because he tried to improve the Indian logic to a better argument. And his argument is called three-membered argument because it has three members: one, thesis, reason, and examples. And thesis, you can divide it into Pakṣa. It means the subject of the thesis, of the topic of the thesis. And the Satyadharma, it's the predicate. It's the property that the subjects have that you need to prove. I try to keep this terminology because I think it will be more clear. So, and the reason, when you try to establish the thesis, you need to provide a reason. And the reason has to satisfy, they call Threerupa Hetu, just means that three characteristics of the reason. So you need to satisfy these three conditions, then it will become a proper reason. And after that, you give your examples, and the examples including the general statement and the instances. So let's see the canonical argument is like this. So the thesis sound is impermanent, and they give the reason because of being produced, and you give examples. So examples, you have general statement, similar, and dissimilar examples. So you have similar collaboration. What is produced is observed to be impermanent, and you have an instance like a part. So you have dissimilar collaboration. What is permanent is observed not to be produced. Then you have an instance like a space. So a part it is produced and it's impermanent. So it can give as a evidence to support the general statement, and the same as a dissimilar instance. And how you can get this argument? Because your reason has to satisfy the three rupa hetu, the three characters of reason. So your reason must satisfy the first condition. It's the reason all occurs in the Pakṣa. So that means that all produced things, all Pakṣa are produced. So the reason all occurs in the Pakṣa. So sounds are produced. Okay, so it satisfies the first condition. The second condition is that the reason must occur at least in one thing that is similar to the Satyadharma. So it means that impermanent. So you need to find a thing, at least one thing, that is produced and impermanent. Okay. And the third condition is that the reason is excluded from what is dissimilar to the Satyadharma. That means that when you find a permanent thing, then you also find that it is not produced. So the reason is excluded from dissimilar things. Okay. So because of satisfy this, people think that Buddhist, at least Dignāga's logic is very similar to syllogism, because it has a kind of major premises. It means that a similar collaboration, all produced things are impermanent, and the minor premise, all sounds are produced, and the conclusion, the thesis, all sounds are impermanent. Now, if you see this syllogism, then people maybe we should formalize this. Then you can see why they think that Buddhist logic is very similar to syllogism. So let me try to formalize from Phratik logic. So SX is X sound, and EX is X is permanent, and PX, X is produced. So we have the first premise, it's because you satisfy the first condition, so you have sounds are produced. Then you have the third condition, then permanent things are not, all permanent things are not produced. And from two, use contraposition, then you will get the major premise that all produced things are impermanent. Then you have your conclusion. Now, if we construct the logic, the argument with this, then there are two problems immediately show up. One is that contraposition. You need a contraposition, and the second one problem is that, but where is the second condition now? Because it seems to be useless. And the second rupa you can formalize as that there's something, at least something that is impermanent, and it's produced. Then it seems that this is useless. So I try to solve these two problems to try to explain why a Dignāga or why Dignāga needs second rupa, and explain that he admit a contraposition. So the first question is, does Dignāga admit contraposition? Some people say yes, like Zheng Weihong is a very important Chinese Buddhist logician, and he said that because of Exclude Pakṣa, Dignāga cannot derive similar collaboration from the third rupa. Means that you cannot derive similar collaboration from this similar collaboration. Because he thinks that Dignāga made a mistake, but I don't think so. I will explain later. And some people say maybe Dignāga doesn't admit contraposition because he claims that the negative example is not enough. This means that this similar instance is not enough, and a positive example is needed for the required certainty. This means that positive example means a positive a similar instance. Then he must deny that all ravens are black. It's in any way implied by all non-black things are not ravens. So he thinks that maybe contraposition only holds in one way. You can derive all ravens are black. That you can derive all non-black things are non-ravens from. No. Sorry. Let's do this again. You can derive all non-black things are non-ravens from all ravens are black, but you cannot derive all ravens are black from all non-black things are non-ravens. But I think this kind of not very plausible. So I try to explain why Dignāga's why he says that the negative examples is not enough, and I will explain it more. But I will use Peter Strawsons idea about universal claim, but I will say later. Okay. So as Zheng Weihong says that because of Exclude Pakṣa, Dignāga made a mistake. Then let's see what is Exclude Pakṣa. This idea is found in Dignāga's work, but Dignāga never explicitly says this. It's because when Xuanzang went to India and he brought the original text about Buddhist logic, and he translates into Chinese. And many disciples of Xuanzang begin to work in Buddhist logic. And they write many books about this, and they find that there's one provision that Dignāga seems to have. It's called Exclude Pakṣa. They think that when providing examples to satisfy the second and the third rupa, examples include instance and the collaboration, cannot contain Pakṣa. So there's an objection here that Zheng Weihong says that if you have this kind of Exclude Pakṣa constraint, then similar collaboration cannot derive from dissimilar collaboration. And another objection is that both similar and dissimilar collaborations cannot be general statements anymore, and that would compromise the deductive power of the canonical arguments. So I try to explain, I try to solve these two objections or answer these two objections. And first I think that the first objection involves conditionals, and the second objection involves that how do you understand the role of Exclude Pakṣa? If you understand as a semantic constraint, then these objection hold. But if you think that the Exclude Pakṣa is a kind of pragmatic constraint, and from the contextual point, then I think we can, answer this objection. Okay, so let's start formalize the similar collaboration based on Exclude Pakṣa. I think Exclude Pakṣa means that when you consider the collaboration, you just forget the Pakṣa first. So for all things that are not sounds, you just don't consider sounds. If they are produced, they are impermanent. Maybe that this not seems so intuitive for some people. So I think maybe better we don't use the next conditional. We just use simple condition. Just use one conditional. So maybe this is a better formalization. For all produced things that are not sounds are impermanent. Okay, so the dissimilar collaboration you can formulate as this: for all permanent things that are not sounds are not produced. Then if you formalize this, then you will see that dissimilar collaboration is logically equivalent to similar collaboration. So you have a dissimilar collaboration, then you can derive this, then use exploitation, then you can use contraposition, then use exploitation, then commutation, then you will find that actually you can derive a similar collaboration from this similar collaboration. So the objection one, I think is not a good objection, because if you formalize this way, then you can see that Dignāga doesn't make mistake if he admits a contraposition. Okay, but now we still have one problem that then what's the role of the second rupa? If you just use contraposition, then you can get what you want, then the second rupa is unnecessary. And He Jianxin is another Buddhist logician in Taiwan, and he said that because we cannot reasonably derive that black raven is black just only from all non-black things are not ravens, we must be certain that similar kind must exist. So He thinks that the second rupa has a role that he can help Dignāga to derive the similar collaboration, but he doesn't explain further. So I try to find some account to support this idea. And when it reminds me this Peter Strawsons idea about the universal claims. So I think that Strawsons idea may answer this question. So Strawsons idea is that he said that all John's children are asleep, lacks truth value if John has no children. And Strawson will say that the existence of children of John's is a necessary precondition, not merely of the truth of what is said, but of its being either true or false. So it's a precondition of the general state has truth value. So I think this is very similar to Dignāga's idea. Maybe it's this second rupa is the precondition of similar collaboration. So when John says unlovely things are not my children, so if you believe John, you should also believe that John's children are lovely. Even after knowing John does not have any child, you can still believe that unlovely things are not John's children. But you won't believe that John's children are lovely anymore. So to derive produced things are impermanent from permanent things are not produced. We need a precondition that some produced things exist, and the second rupa warrants this precondition. I think this explains the role of second rupa well. But still, we already explained the role of contraposition and the role of a second rupa, but we still cannot answer that why, if we admit Exclude Pakṣa, then are the similar collaboration and dissimilar collaboration general statement? So if you think that Exclude Pakṣa is a semantic requirement, then you will see that the canonical argument is like this. But now problem is this. Now the thesis cannot derive from the premises anymore, because this is not a general statement. This is not a general statement. So people think that Exclude Pakṣa will make the Dignāga's argument not deductive one. So I try to think in another direction to try to help Dignāga to explain this. So when I read the text, and I realized that there's a requirement of the thesis, and I think this is very similar to the requirement of Stalnaker's assertion theory. So the requirement of the thesis says that the thesis should be accepted by the proponent, but not so yet by the opponent. It means that when in Buddhist logic, the proponents try to establish the thesis, and you have your opponent who may be not sure about the thesis, or who is kind of argue against the thesis. So in the beginning, the thesis is not accepted by both parties. And to establish a thesis against common sense is a fallacy. So in Buddhist logic, you cannot propose a thesis that against common sense. And you cannot propose a thesis agreed by both parties. So to establish a thesis agreed by both parties, it's also a fallacy. So let's look at the assertion that Stalnaker talked about. He says that a proposition asserted is always true in some, but not all of the possible words in the context set. To make assertion is to reduce the context set in a particular way provided that there are no objections from the other participants in the conversation. And to assert something incompatible with what is presupposed is self-defeating. So against common sense is a fallacy. One wants to reduce the context set, but not to eliminate it altogether. And to assert something which is already presupposed is to attempt to do something that is already done. So you don't propose a thesis that agreed by both parties. So Stalnaker idea is that when you in a conversation or in a debate, you have a presupposition that both accept, okay? But you also disagree with many things. So like as it's true in some context, but it's true in some world, but false in some world. Then it's like people have different opinion in a debate. And and Stalnaker also provides a kind of idea about what the argument, or how you evaluate an argument. Maybe you can evaluate from a different aspect or different approach that he called reasonable inference. So he said that an inference from a sequence of assertions or suppositions to an assertion or hypothetical assertion is reasonable just in case in every context in which the premises could appropriately be asserted or supposed, it is impossible for anyone to accept the premises without committing himself to the conclusion. And I think that the Buddhist logic maybe can be analyzed from the reasonable inference. The proponent tried to make his opponent accept his thesis. So he tried to say that, okay, now I give a reason, then the reason satisfies this condition. So if you accept this, then you will commit to my thesis. And Stalnaker also thinks that this kind of context is a kind of ever-changing. So a conversation is a process taking place in an ever-changing context. And the context, what's supposed in it, is constantly changing as things are said. So it is therefore to be expected that the domain of discourse, because this context idea was proposed, and the Recanati thinks that it can also apply to the domain of discourse. So he thinks that it is therefore to be expected that the domain of discourse itself can change in mid-utterance. This means that there can be more than one domain, more than one situation corresponding to a given utterance. So when I see this, I think maybe Exclude Pakṣa, it's just like the change of domain of discourse. So in the beginning of the debate, you want to avoid unnecessary, unnecessary argument or unnecessary debate. So both parties forget the subject of the thesis first. Just don't consider it. Remove it from the domain of discourse. Then we can have something in common to discuss. So I think the role of rupas just kind of begin from a narrow domain of discourse, and to satisfy the second and the third rupa, we'll make a general statement, the similar collaboration convincing. Then we expand the domain by discussing Pakṣa. Then without further information, we should still accept similar collaboration. And to show that the reason satisfy the first rupa will make the opponent accept the thesis. Because when you say that when the reason satisfy the first rupa, you bring the Pakṣa. Because he said that all Pakṣa has reasons. So you you bring the Pakṣa into the domain of discourse, then you expand your context. So it will make the similar collaboration still a general statement. Okay, so my idea is like this. It's like a dynamic model. So you begin from a context. So you have 4 possibilities. Then when you satisfy the third rupa and the second rupa, because second rupa say that there's something, they are produced things. So when you satisfy the third rupa, you will eliminate this possibility. And because you have a second rupa, so you can derive the similar collaboration. You say that all produced things are impermanent. Then you satisfy the first rupa. Now the sounds, all sounds has reason. All sounds have reason. All sounds are produced. So you introduce the sound into this context. Then the opponent should accept this. All sounds are impermanent now. Okay, so that's my explanation for the Exclude Pakṣa. And I think that there are more similarities than we thought between Buddhist logic and the Western logic. And from Strawsons Idea, I think we can explain the role of the second rupa. And from the contextual point of view, we will provide a new interpretation of about Exclude Pakṣa. And I think that modern logic can help us to clarify some important issues in Buddhist logic, and maybe some ideas behind Buddhist logic can contribute to Western logic. But I need to explore this more. Okay, thank you.